What would you do if there was a knock at your door and you were told you had to kill the person you loved most in the world? What would you do? From the first moment we see little Wen playing in the middle of the forest, we are brought into an amazing story given to us by M. Night Shyamalan. I see the movie for more than what it is, as just a movie. I see this masterpiece of storytelling creation combined with the themes encompassed within. This movie and story will have you wondering and guessing what is true and what is real, and have you on a roller coaster ride with a never-ending climb to the top of the biggest drop right up until the end of the movie. So join me for my deep, in-depth analysis of M. Night Shyamalan new movie, Knock at the Cabin. As this is a deep, in-depth analysis into the movie on Knock at the Cabin, there will be spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, I 100% recommend you turn off this video right now and find a nice quiet place to curl up on your couch and watch this movie first before you watch my analysis of the movie. Right from the start, we are brought in with some eerie music and weird cryptic images being seen already drawn on everyday normal objects and papers. We see images drawn of weird-looking weapons, death, maps, and disasters. We get these images as an extremely vague clue as to what is to come. With the eerie music and the atmosphere of the images being shown to us, we, as the viewer, all start to wonder what is to come. The cryptic images at the beginning during the credits I felt had hidden information or clues within, but I could find nothing special. We get what seemed like hospital forms, a child's test from school, and a glimpse of a menu, giving us a slight introduction, showing these were drawn by Leonard and his associates. It all starts when the grasshopper jumps. In our opening scene, we meet Wen as her hands close over a grasshopper that she puts into a jar with many other grasshoppers. She names a grasshopper after her friend at school, who she says farts in class. She continues to tell the grasshopper not to fart in the jar, or the other grasshoppers will not like them. I think this symbolizes a very loving, accepting heart within our character Wen, which is the first glimpse at some of the themes which are to come within this story. The entire story is a play on humanity, the human mind, acceptance of others, love, emotions, and empathy, as well as truth, philosophy, and epistemology. The themes which encompass our minds as humans, which I think is why this suspenseful horror thriller can leave such an impact on the human mind. Little Wen looks up from writing in her book and sees a large man walking towards her in the middle of the forest. She is noticeably scared and looks around confused. The man approaches her in a very friendly manner and introduces himself as Leonard. He befriends Wen and they start a conversation.
Wenling, but everyone calls me Wen.
Well, it's nice to meet you, Wen. My name's Leonard.
The conversation is very intense. I was expecting the worst and to see Leonard reach over and rip off little Wen's head at the most unexpected moment.
You call your dad by his first name?
It's so they know who I'm talking to. There's Daddy Eric and Daddy Andrew.
We learn that Wen is adopted and has two dads, what her favorite movie is, and they play a game in which we are only given a friendly conversation between friends divulging truths, symbolizing one of the most important themes within this movie, truth, or what is
Take turns
truth.
putting pedals off and asking questions, and by the time we're done, we'll know each other better. Be better friends.
Okay.
Within this conversation between Leonard and Wen, every answer given is 100% the truth. The truth becomes scary and unbearable for little Wen when she asks,
Why are you here?
As Leonard starts looking off into the forest, scared himself, Leonard tells Wen that his heart is broken.
If you look inside, see that my heart is broken.
Why is it broken?
Because of what I have to do today.
What do you have to do?
As we see 3 other people emerging from the forest carrying weird-looking weapons, we are introduced to the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which would only be revealed later in the movie. A little different from what we would have expected. They're normal, everyday humans, chosen by the apocalyptic visions they were given and imbued with how the apocalypse can be stopped. And that rests in the hands of a decision and sacrifice that must be made by Wen and her 2 fathers.
This isn't about you, Wen, or your dad's, okay? You haven't done anything wrong, but I'm afraid the 3 of you are gonna have to make some tough decisions, terrible decisions. And I wish with all my broken heart that you didn't have to.
Wen runs away from Leonard and back towards the cabin which her family was staying at. She alerts her dads to the oncoming threat. Also note what Daddy Andrew says as Wen comes through the door. See? Actual proof. They are speaking of where Wen was, but the script is padded with things like this to express the elements that are about to come into play with truth and what is true. And at first, they don't take Wen seriously until they hear the deadening knock at the cabin door.
It's okay. Listen, sweetie. What happened? What scared you?
There were 4 of them. The big one, his name's Leonard. He says we had to help them. He says they have the most important job in the history of the world.
That is when the situation becomes real for Daddy Eric and Daddy Andrew. Scared, they try to think of a plan, a way to get help. They see Dave Bautista towering over their door as Leonard and the others all carrying weapons and realize they can't fight. We learn about a gun locked away in a car and the fact that the people outside the cabin do not want to hurt them. They just want to talk. And they will stop at nothing to have that conversation as they start to surround and break into the cabin. We get some intense feelings as the horsemen breaking into all entrances simultaneously. Our family starts to panic, and rightfully so.
I'm giving you one last chance to open the door.
A small fight ensues once our 4 horsemen gain access to the cabin. We learn they are truthfully not there to hurt them. It may not seem that way at first, with attacking the family and tying them up, but as the movie progresses, we learn much about the 4 horsemen that make them no different from you or me.
Andrew, that's enough.
And what they have to do, they do not want to do, bringing into question the truth of the free will of their actions. We are introduced to our 4 horsemen and their life before their visions in an epic fashion as we meet each of our characters truly who they are for the first time. We can connect their professions to the documents and papers we've seen during the credits.
My name is Sabrina. I live in Southern California. I use most of my savings to come out to Pennsylvania, to come here, to talk with you guys.
Well, I think you guys already know my name is Leonard. I'm from Chicago. I'm a 2nd grade teacher, and I run the after-school program.
I live in Medford, Massachusetts. I work for the gas company, making sure houses and apartments don't blow up.
I hope I don't sound confusing. I'm Adrian. Yeah, I've been a lot of things, but right now, before I got up here, I was a line cook at a Mexican restaurant in DuPont Circle, D.C.
Also note that every character in this movie is having their consent violated by God. We learn soon to be involved in such a task of sacrifice as our characters, Daddy Eric, Daddy Andrew, and Wen, who must make the most important choice, an unimaginable choice. An impossible choice. Aside from the story within the movie, I wanted to congratulate Dave Bautista and every acting artist within this film. Their speaking tones, their demeanor, the way each plays their part in the story almost perfectly, displaying the emotions conveyed and felt by the viewer. The best thing is the reactions and expressions we get on their faces, showing how no one we are seeing is a willing participant in what is happening. It's the apocalypse, baby, and God is going to rain down horror on Earth unless he gets his sacrifice, which is left in the hands of one family to make. Just like in the Bible stories. But why were they chosen? Why this family? I think what this family symbolizes is true unbreakable love and acceptance. Through God's test, he needs the purest of true love to make the sacrifice. We have Daddy Andrew, the skeptic, and we have Daddy Eric, the believer. Through their flashbacks, we see the problems their love has had, being two men and adopting a little girl. Through Daddy Andrew's religious, unaccepting parents and them not approving of their love, to the coincidence of Redmond, Rupert Grint's character, having been sent to prison years before for attacking them in a bar for being gay. We see their hardships, we see their joyous occasions, like when adopting Wen. The true love of a true family must be broken. It is a test of love, emotions, and empathy for others. And ask yourself, what would you do if you were put in this situation? Would you be able to make the ultimate selfless sacrifice to kill your loved ones, to save everything and avert the apocalypse? Or like our family in the movie, would you be shunned with disbelief at what you are being told?
The four of us are here to prevent the apocalypse. Ultimately, whether the world ends or not, is completely up to you three. Your family must choose to willingly sacrifice one of the three of you in order to prevent the apocalypse. After you make what I know is an impossible decision, you must then kill the one you choose. If you fail to choose, or if you fail to follow through with the sacrifice, the world will end. You three will live, but the rest of humanity, 7 billion plus, will perish.
Some interesting parallels I found to our characters in the story of the Four Horsemen are, in the Bible, Revelation 6 tells of a book or scroll in God's right hand that is sealed with 7 seals. When the first 4 of the 7 seals are opened, it summons the 4 horsemen that ride out on a white, red, black, and pale horse. Also note, there were 7 seals in total, which the remaining 3 could be seen as our family's role in the apocalypse. In John's Revelation, the first horseman rides a white horse, carries a bow, and is given a crown as a figure of conquest. The second carries a sword and rides a red horse as the creator of civil war, conflict, and strife. The third, a food merchant, rides a black horse symbolizing famine and carries the scales. The fourth and final horse is pale. Upon it rides death, accompanied by Hades. Christianity sometimes interprets the 4 horsemen as visions of harbingers of the last judgment, setting a divine end time upon the world, which sounds a little bit more like our 4 horsemen today. I can't help but try to find more meaning and connections within this, having a white, red, black, and pale horse. The red horse may be symbolizing Redmond's character, but even more, one of the 4 horsemen being a food merchant, and our character Adrian working in a restaurant. If there is more to this, I can't piece it all together to understand it myself. What happens if our family does not choose to make a choice? As our 4 horsemen characters are speaking to the family and trying to explain what they were told in their visions, which led them to each other and led them all to the cabin. Notice the tension within the horsemen, the glances at their weapons, knowing what is to come. Leonard starts to explain the start of the apocalypse in very vague, biblical, descript terms, and also explains how their sacrifice can stop it. Then we learn, for each no that is given, one of the 4 horsemen is murdered by the others, and in turn a plague is released on the earth.
Looking at me, okay? Don't you fucking look away from me.
Part of humanity has been judged.
This isn't real.
When our character's Redmond is killed, we get our M. Night Shyamalan cameo. Like in every movie, he always tends to make an appearance in the infomercials shown before the news broadcasts. Speaking of massive earthquakes happening all over the world, causing massive tidal waves, wiping out a portion of humanity.
And we have footage shot minutes ago from Cannon Beach.
This scene is so intense and the acting is amazing from our remaining three horsemen and the family as the horsemen start to realize everything they saw is true and how important this one choice or sacrifice is. The final horrific scene of the camera filming the tsunami being underwater and all the bodies being swept away underwater before Sabrina turns off the TV is quite intense to watch. I think the way it was shown to us in news broadcasts can momentarily make us forget we are watching the news within a movie and have a little more effect on us as humans. Our family is left to ponder what is true and if they will make a choice.
Tomorrow morning you can make the difficult, selfless choice of sacrifice and save the world. Or you can choose once again to let the clock move another minute closer to permanent midnight.
The morning comes quickly and it is time to make a choice. Adrian comes out pleading, knowing what is true and what is to come. She speaks about her son and how she doesn't want him to die in the apocalypse. Again, a choice is not made and Adrian is murdered.
Part of humanity has been
We
judged.
see another news broadcast on the TV that isn't nearly as convincing as the first one. We have attempts to break free by the fathers, which succeed. They both break and fight free, and Daddy Andrew makes it to the gun in the SUV. A fight ensues with Sabrina, and Sabrina stabs Andrew a few times, trying to stop him from getting the gun, and Sabrina eventually runs off. Andrew then proceeds to go and help his family in the cabin with Leonard and holds him at gunpoint. Leonard says, "It is time to make a choice." And Sabrina runs in the back door of the cabin and Daddy Andrew shoots her. Sabrina does not die and Leonard finishes her off when the choice is not made. The family, now in control with the gun, we learn that Redmond was actually the same guy who attacked Andrew years ago. Daddy Andrew locks Leonard in the bathroom, but Leonard outsmarts them and is able to get the gun from them. Leonard tells him to turn on the TV to see everything he has been saying is true. And we see our most horrific news footage of all the airplanes everywhere plummeting to the ground. I want to point out also the way this footage made me feel when watching it immersed in the movie. Everything about it felt real for some reason. I think at the same time, even as the viewer, you realized everything you have been told is true within this story. There is no twist coming. Even Daddy Eric fully believes at this point.
I thought it wasn't real.
We learn that the apocalypse has been happening already, and everything the Four Horsemen were trying to do was to stop it in the last minutes. Which leaves us to wonder, after a choice was not made again, what were the plagues released on humanity when Leonard slit his own throat at the end? We get an epic final conversation between Daddy Eric and Daddy Andrew, where Daddy Eric finally realizes everything they were saying is true, and the only way to stop it is to submit his sacrifice to God, which he now fully accepts, and Andrew kills him with his happiest thoughts in his head. It immediately starts raining outside. Daddy Andrew goes to the treehouse to find Gwen, and when he finds her, she says,
Did Daddy Eric save everyone?
We see lightning flash nearby when inside the treehouse, setting the cabin on fire. Daddy Andrew and Wen make it to the car the horseman came in, parked on the side of the road, and they drive down the road and stop at a diner, which is full of people. When they enter, the news is on, and we hear a news broadcast of water levels miraculously receding everywhere in the world, virus cases starting to plummet for no reason, and planes landing safely everywhere. They return to the car, and Daddy Andrew starts to look through the stuff left there by the four horsemen. He soon realizes that they all were telling the truth about who they were, seeing their IDs and a picture of Adrian with her son. And I think this is the first time Daddy Andrew believes any of this when he sits down in the front seat next to Wen and sees Redmond's real name on a gas company ID. Now knowing and fully understanding what he thought was crazy was the truth. Now knowing the sacrifice they all made to save the world, as the movie's caption song, Boogie Shoes, by Casey and the Sunshine Band, comes on the radio, and Daddy Andrew immediately turns it off, as Wen reaches over and turns it back on for a second. And then Daddy Andrew does the same, and they drive off into the distance, leaving it on. I think this symbolizes a good place, playing the song, a heaven the family once had, and the switching on and off of the song shows how the heaven has been disrupted by the death of Daddy Eric, and each of them realizing the truth of what had to be done. I truly love this movie. It shows the genius of M. Night Shyamalan's movie making, how it is creative and different from others, always to give you an original movie or premise. For sure, he has some movies I did not enjoy, but I think the movies of his that I enjoyed surpass the enjoyment of most movies I find moderately entertaining. With Knock at the Cabin in particular, we get a horror movie with no actual willing villain or psychopath. Our so-called villains within this movie do not want to do what they must, but they know they need to. The movie is filled with dialogue between all of our main characters in almost a Socratic method, as all of our characters are questioning what is real, what is the truth. And I think M. Night Shyamalan did an amazing job of keeping the viewers on the edge of their seat pondering all of these same questions themselves through the whole movie until we are revealed at the end. As much as the concept of God is tied up within this story, I don't think it centers on it. For sure, by the end it may seem that way, being what the truth was in the film. But I think it more centers on that universal question of truth, and it could be the truth of anything. What is it, and how do we know it? Which is why even our four horsemen were struck with disbelief when they realized their visions were true. From the first news broadcast and everything else that tails after that. This movie is the best the first time you see it, unknowing of what is to happen, to ponder what is true within this story as you watch it. But it is still entertaining after multiple rewatches due to the superb acting of all involved, but especially Dave Bautista and the character he played as Leonard. The way he spoke, the way every emotion of the character showed through every one of Dave Bautista's body language actions and facial expressions was amazing. I think the genius of this movie is the fact that as a viewer watching, without knowing the outcome of the film, we are at every minute expecting a twist in the story of what we are being told through the information the characters are giving us. As a viewer, hoping it is not true what we are being told. Putting ourselves into the shoes of any one of the characters pondering questions. As a viewer, we have pondered ourselves. I have said so much throughout this analysis, I am sure anything else I say would be a reiteration of something I said previous. So I will leave it at that. Let me know your thoughts on my thoughts in the comments.